"I never forgot your hands, human," whispered the alien queen on the battlefield. The human starship Aurora glided silently through the endless blackness of space, its sleek silver hull catching the faint glow of distant stars. Inside, Captain Eli Carter sat in the command chair, his hands resting lightly on the control console. The humans had traveled farther than any of their kind had ever gone before, and the atmosphere aboard the ship was a mix of quiet tension and excitement. Every crew member moved with purpose, knowing that the mission ahead was unprecedented. They were not here to fight, but to observe, negotiate, and survive in a galaxy that had long assumed humans were weak, fragile, and insignificant. As the planet below came into view, Eli leaned forward, studying the pale green and silver surface. It was a world ruled by the infamous alien empire, known for its intricate bureaucracy and uncompromising hierarchy. The empire had never taken humans seriously. To them, humans were unpredictable, emotional, and physically limited. Eli knew better. Humans were resourceful, adaptable, and surprisingly resilient. Those qualities had kept their species alive for thousands of years against threats far greater than any alien army. He took a deep breath and reminded himself that this mission required every ounce of calm focus he could muster. The ship descended slowly through the thin atmosphere, guided by a complex dance of thrusters and sensors. Outside the observation window, the sprawling city of the alien rulers came into view, towers rising like glass and metal fingers from the surface. The city was alive with activity, moving in ways that were precise and mechanical, unlike anything humans had ever seen. Yet, despite the grandeur, Eli noticed something subtle. A pattern in the way the alien workers moved, a rhythm that hinted at strict order but also at rigidity. There was little room for improvisation in their society, a weakness that humans could exploit in ways the aliens would never anticipate. Eli's first officer, Lieutenant Mara Lin, approached him quietly, her dark eyes reflecting both excitement and concern. "Captain, we're entering the designated landing zone. The alien emissaries should meet us there," she said. Her voice was calm, but Eli could sense the tension under it. Humans had trained for this moment for years, but real experience was always different from simulations. "Understood," he replied. "Keep the crew focused. No sudden moves, no unnecessary communication. We are guests on their planet." The shuttle doors opened with a hiss as they entered the alien city. The ground beneath them was smooth and cold, made of a material that reflected the pale green light of the planet's sun. The air smelled faintly metallic, sharp but not unpleasant, and the temperature was slightly cooler than human standards. Alien figures approached, their forms elegant and imposing. They moved with grace, yet every motion was controlled, precise, and deliberate. Eli noticed their eyes, large and iridescent, reflecting more light than he had ever seen in any creature before. It was impossible to tell what they were thinking, but their attention was clearly on him. A tall figure stepped forward. She was regal, her presence commanding attention without a word. Her skin shimmered with a subtle golden hue, and her eyes were deep, almost liquid, shifting colors with every blink. Eli recognized her immediately from the holograms that had been shown to the crew, the alien queen, Lyra. She did not speak at first, simply observing, her gaze moving over each human with a calm intensity. Eli met her eyes, holding her stare without fear. Every instinct told him to be cautious, to remain formal, but he also knew that humans had a subtle way of conveying strength through composure, even when outmatched. Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft but carrying across the landing zone without effort. "Humans," she said, and the word itself seemed to ripple in the air. "You have come far." There was no mockery in her tone, only curiosity. That small detail unsettled Eli. Humans were used to being underestimated, but he had never faced a creature whose attention felt so tangible, almost like it could see into his very thoughts. He inclined his head respectfully. "Your Majesty," he said, "we come seeking understanding, not conflict." The words felt simple, but their meaning was significant. Humanity had always survived by being precise with both speech and action. Lyra stepped closer, and Eli noted the fluidity of her movements. Her hands, long and delicate, hovered just slightly as if she were weighing invisible scales. Humans had hands too, but Eli had always believed that the way one used them could convey intelligence and care in ways words could not. He moved his own hands subtly, showing openness, confidence, and calm precision, never aggressive, never idle. For reasons he could not explain, he felt her attention linger on them longer than expected. The alien guards flanking Lyra remained stiff, emotionless, yet Eli could feel the subtle ripple of surprise among them. Humans did not often move with the combination of intent and restraint he displayed, and it seemed to have caught the Queen's notice. Lyra's eyes softened briefly, almost imperceptibly, and a faint whisper passed her lips. Eli could not hear the words, but her gaze held something that went beyond curiosity. She remembered. Somehow, somewhere, she remembered humans differently than her subjects did. The negotiations began in earnest, though they were less about words than subtle observation. The humans did not understand the alien customs entirely, but Eli had learned a human advantage over centuries: intuition, adaptability, and observation. He watched every micro-expression, every shift in stance, every flicker of light across the Queen's eyes. Other aliens might see humans as fragile, emotional creatures, but Eli knew the truth. Humans thrived where others hesitated. He had witnessed it countless times, and today would be no different. Hours passed, measured in quiet exchanges and subtle demonstrations of skill. The humans did not boast, but they displayed precision in ways the aliens could not ignore. Myra adjusted a sensor, Eli corrected a navigation map, and the crew worked seamlessly as if every motion had been rehearsed 1,000 times. Lyra watched closely, her attention unwavering. The more the humans moved, the more she seemed to study them, cataloging each action, each deliberate motion. And then, just as the sun dipped below the horizon of the alien city, she did something unexpected. She stepped back from the discussion table and whispered, barely audible, "I never forgot your hands, human." Eli froze, his heart skipping a beat. It was not meant for anyone else, yet somehow it carried weight across the room. The other aliens did not notice, or perhaps they chose not to, but Eli felt a strange shift in the air. That single, quiet phrase carried centuries of unspoken history, of battles remembered, of intelligence acknowledged. Humans had always been underestimated, yet here, in the quiet, the Queen had recognized something vital, something beyond the superficial judgment of others. Eli did not respond immediately. Instead, he continued his movements, subtle but precise, as if the whisper had been part of the air itself. He could not act on words he did not fully understand, but he felt a connection, tenuous yet undeniable. The human advantage had always been subtle, indirect, and today it revealed itself in ways neither species fully comprehended. The Queen's whisper was not a declaration, not yet. It was a recognition of potential, of intellect, and perhaps of shared history. Night fell on the alien city, and the humans were escorted to their quarters, chambers that shimmered with light and seemed impossibly spacious. Eli and Mara entered the room, the hum of the city below fading into silence. "Did you hear that?" Mara asked, her voice hushed yet tinged with awe. Eli nodded, choosing his words carefully. "Yes, and it means more than we can yet understand. The Queen noticed something about us today that the others cannot see." Mara sat down, letting the weight of the day settle over her. "Humans have always survived because of things no one notices until it's too late," she said quietly. Eli smiled, a small curve of understanding. That was exactly what they had done, and would continue to do. Outside, the alien city sparkled like a field of stars under the distant sun. Humans were small, yet they moved with precision, intelligence, and care that no alien technology could predict. Eli sat by the observation window, his hands resting on the glass, thinking of the Queen's words. Perhaps the galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long. Perhaps it was time they learned the true meaning of human ingenuity. And somewhere across the room, the Queen's whisper lingered in the quiet, a promise, a memory, and an acknowledgement that humans had more power than anyone had imagined. The night deepened, yet Eli remained awake, pondering every movement, every gesture, every decision that had brought humanity here. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and marvels, but humans had survived, thrived, and adapted in ways no one could anticipate. Lyra's whisper had changed little on the surface, yet it had shifted something fundamental in the balance of perception. Humans were no longer merely observers. They were potential catalysts, agents of change in a universe that had assumed they could be ignored. And as the first light of the alien sun peeked over the horizon, painting the city in shades of silver and green, Eli Carter smiled, his hands resting on the console, ready to move, to adapt. and to survive. The journey had only just begun, and already the galaxy was beginning to notice that humans were not what anyone had expected. The next morning, the humans were escorted through the alien city to a large hall where representatives from the Empire's council had gathered. The hall was massive, filled with structures that shimmered with colors Eli had no names for. The ceiling seemed to float above, unsupported, and the floors reflected every movement like liquid glass. Aliens of various forms moved gracefully along the platforms, their eyes sharp and observant. Eli could feel their gazes, some curious, some skeptical. Humans had been invited to witness the council, but it quickly became clear that observation alone would not suffice. The humans would be tested. The council chamber was a place designed to overwhelm. Symbols of power, tradition, and history were everywhere. Eli noted the meticulous arrangement of alien artifacts, the way every chair, table, and screen seemed to have its precise place. It was beautiful, yes, but also rigid. Humans could see patterns others might miss, and Eli had learned long ago that patterns could be turned to advantage. He led his team with calm steps, hands steady, showing confidence without arrogance. Mara walked beside him, her expression quiet but alert. Together, the humans moved as one, precise and composed, a silent contrast to the alien audience that valued show and ceremony over subtlety. Lyra observed from a raised platform. Her golden skin reflected the hall's shifting light, and her eyes followed each human movement with intense focus. Unlike the council members who whispered and shifted among themselves, she did not blink in haste. Her attention was deliberate, unhurried. Eli could sense it even from across the chamber, though he did not yet know why. Humans had long survived by noticing small things, by paying attention where others rushed. He guessed Lyra had noticed the same, a shared instinct that transcended species. The council began its formal proceedings. Alien representatives demonstrated devices, explained protocols, and displayed feats of engineering and logic. Humans listened carefully, noting details others overlooked. Eli observed that some of the mechanisms, though advanced, were inflexible. They relied on perfect conditions, exact timing, and predictable behavior. Humans, in contrast, thrived in the unexpected. He saw opportunity, though he knew he must remain respectful. Any display of human skill would be subtle, almost invisible, so the aliens would not feel threatened. Hours passed with careful observation. Then, a test was announced, framed as a demonstration of the Empire's capabilities. A series of mechanical devices was activated in the chamber, intricate machines with spinning components and delicate controls. The council expected humans to be overwhelmed or confused. Eli watched closely as the machines began to malfunction, small errors that could cascade into failure if left unchecked. Most humans might have panicked, not Eli. He stepped forward calmly, adjusting one lever, nudging another component, observing the reactions with careful hands. Every movement was precise, deliberate, and effective. The malfunction was corrected without fanfare, without words. The machines continued their operations smoothly, as if nothing had ever gone wrong. Eli glanced briefly at Mara, who raised an eyebrow in silent acknowledgement. The subtle correction went almost unnoticed by the council, but Lyra's eyes lingered on him, a trace of recognition in their golden depths. A murmur passed through the assembly, some aliens puzzled, some impressed. It was difficult to tell with their emotionless faces, but Eli had learned to read patterns, microexpressions, and subtle shifts in posture. The humans had acted without disrupting the council's order, demonstrating capability without aggression. It was a display of ingenuity disguised as obedience. In that moment, Eli realized something profound. Humans did not need to dominate others to show strength. Subtlety, intelligence, and precision could achieve far more than brute force. After the demonstration, Lyra stepped down from her platform and approached the humans. Her movement was slow, graceful, deliberate. Eli noticed the way she tilted her head slightly, her gaze falling on his hands once again. There was a history there, unspoken and deep, and though Eli did not understand it yet, he felt its weight. He extended his hand in greeting, a simple gesture of respect, and she accepted it, her touch light but firm. The council members did not react, though Eli sensed that they had noticed. Something about the connection between the two of them shifted the atmosphere. Lyra spoke softly, almost as if to herself. "I never forgot your hands, human," she said again, and this time Eli understood more than he had before. She did not mean strength or skill or power in the conventional sense. She meant attention, care, and the ability to act deliberately with thought and purpose. Humans had survived, she knew, not because they were the strongest or fastest, but because they could move through the world with awareness, with precision, with understanding. The council continued its proceedings, but Lyra remained by the humans, subtly guiding the discussion. The humans were invited to contribute, though carefully, so as not to disrupt the ceremony. Eli spoke with clarity and simplicity, offering observations about patterns and processes the aliens had overlooked. He spoke calmly, without arrogance, and yet his words carried weight. The aliens listened, some reluctantly, some intrigued. They did not fully understand it yet, but they began to see that humans were more than their physical limitations. As the day progressed, the humans were shown the Empire's resource management systems, methods for organizing populations, and plans for interstellar expansion. Each demonstration was intended to impress and intimidate. Eli observed patiently, noting flaws, inconsistencies, and rigid assumptions. He saw that the aliens excelled in control and tradition, but they struggled with unpredictability and adaptation. Humans, he knew, thrived in uncertainty, and he silently cataloged opportunities to demonstrate this advantage without appearing boastful. During a quiet moment, Eli found himself alone with Lyra in one of the observation chambers. She looked out at the city below, her expression contemplative. "Humans are different than I expected," she said softly. Eli nodded. "We survive differently. We notice things, adapt quickly, and we care about details that others overlook." Lyra turned her gaze toward him, golden eyes meeting his directly. "Your hands," she said, and there was no judgment in her voice, only recognition. "They move with purpose, they remember. They shape things carefully. I have not seen that in many species." Eli felt a strange warmth, a validation that went beyond words. Humans had always been underestimated, but here, Lyra saw them differently. When the council reconvened in the evening, Eli and his team were asked to solve a minor logistical problem that the aliens had been struggling with for weeks. It was a delicate operation, requiring attention to minute details and careful sequencing. Humans approached it calmly, analyzing the situation step by step. They communicated silently through gestures and glances, coordinating like a single organism. Slowly, methodically, they corrected the errors that had stumped the council, finishing the task without drawing undue attention to themselves. Lyra observed every movement, her golden eyes narrowing in concentration, a faint smile touching her lips. The other aliens murmured among themselves, confused by how easily the humans had succeeded where their own species had failed. Eli did not seek praise. He had learned long ago that humility often carried more power than triumph. Yet he understood the significance of what had occurred. Humans had demonstrated their strength quietly, without confrontation, without fanfare, and without violence. The galaxy would see their skill in unexpected ways. After the council meeting, Eli and Mara walked through the alien city under the soft glow of its twin moons. The streets were quiet now, filled with the hum of distant engines and the soft patter of alien life. "Do you think they understand?" Mara asked. Eli considered the question carefully. "Some do, some never will, but that is not important. What matters is that we move with awareness, precision, and patience. That is how humans survive. That is how we are noticed." Suddenly, a faint hum came from a nearby plaza. Aliens had gathered to observe a display of light and sound, a ceremonial demonstration intended to remind everyone of the Empire's glory. Eli watched carefully. He noticed that the display relied on predictable patterns, timing, and repetition. The humans in his team whispered suggestions quietly, subtle changes in approach that made the display more efficient without altering its appearance. The aliens did not realize they were being subtly guided. Eli smiled faintly. Humans often succeeded without anyone realizing until much later. The night deepened, and the humans returned to their quarters. Eli sat by the observation window, gazing at the alien city below, its towers shimmering like silver spires in the pale moonlight. He thought of Lyra's words, of her attention to his hands, of the recognition that humans had achieved something invisible yet powerful. Humanity had always survived because it noticed, adapted, and acted with intention. The aliens might not understand it yet, but the truth was undeniable. As sleep approached, Eli reflected on the day's events. Humans had arrived as guests, underestimated and observed. Yet by the end of the day, they had subtly demonstrated skill, intelligence, and adaptability that no alien could ignore forever. Lyra's quiet fascination, her whispered words, had confirmed something he had always known. Humans were not weak. They were capable of changing the course of events in ways that others could never predict. And as the twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting pale light across the city, Eli Carter understood that the journey had only begun. Humans had survived countless challenges before, and this galaxy, with all its complexity and mystery, would soon see that survival did not require brute strength. It required intelligence, care, precision, and the courage to act when it mattered most. Lyra's whisper echoed in his mind once more, a promise, a memory, and a challenge. Humans were here quietly, deliberately, and they would be noticed. The morning light on the alien planet was pale and green, reflecting softly across the city's towering spires. Eli Carter stood by the observation window of the human quarters, his hands resting lightly on the ledge. The previous day had revealed much: subtle skills, quiet recognition, and the unexpected interest of the alien queen, Lyra. Yet there was still more to uncover. Humans had always survived by noticing what others overlooked, and Eli sensed that today would demand even greater attention. Mara Lynn entered the room, her expression calm but thoughtful. "The council has requested a private demonstration," she said. "It seems they want to see your approach to a long-standing problem, Captain." Eli nodded. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, and now they were being asked to display their capability in a controlled setting. It was an opportunity, but also a risk. "Then we give them what they cannot expect," he replied, quietly, deliberately, and with care. When the humans arrived at the designated chamber, they found the council members already gathered. The room was massive, filled with displays of alien technology, intricate devices, and holographic screens. Lyra stood slightly apart from the others, her gaze fixed on Eli. Her attention was unwavering, as if she were studying every micro-movement he made. Eli felt the weight of that gaze, but instead of intimidation, he felt recognition. Somehow, she understood that humans did not move with raw power alone, but with purpose, thought, and precision. The council presented the problem: a complex system of interlinked energy conduits that supplied multiple sectors of the city had been malfunctioning intermittently. It had stumped their engineers for weeks. The humans were asked to propose a solution, though the council expected only confusion or error. Eli approached the system, scanning the devices carefully. He noticed subtle misalignments, timing errors, and assumptions built into the system that the aliens had never questioned. Most of these errors were invisible to the untrained eye, but humans had long relied on observation, pattern recognition, and careful reasoning. Eli directed Mara and the rest of the human team with quiet gestures, pointing to specific conduits and sequences. Together, they began to adjust, test, and observe. Every movement was deliberate, precise, and controlled. Aliens around them murmured quietly, some puzzled, others curious. They could not understand how these fragile creatures could manipulate the system so effortlessly. Eli adjusted a small lever here, nudged a sequence there, and slowly the conduits synchronized. Energy flowed smoothly across the city's sectors, and the council's holographic displays confirmed it. Lyra's gaze followed every motion. Her eyes, golden and reflective, showed something no one else saw: recognition, awe, and a hint of something deeper. She had witnessed the humans' ingenuity in quiet ways before, but this demonstration revealed a level of subtle intelligence that few species could claim. Eli did not boast, he did not seek praise. He had learned long ago that strength came in quiet precision and careful observation. Humans survived, thrived, and influenced outcomes not by intimidation, but by thinking, noticing, and acting deliberately. After the demonstration, Lyra approached Eli alone. The chamber was emptying, and the hum of alien activity was soft in the background. She regarded him with intensity, and for the first time, Eli felt that he was not simply observed, but understood. "I have watched your species for a long time," she said softly. "Not just you, Captain, but humans in general. You move, act, and think differently. You notice things no one else sees, and you shape outcomes without needing to dominate. I have not seen that before." Eli listened carefully, knowing the weight of her words. Recognition from Lyra was more valuable than praise from any other alien. He inclined his head respectfully. We survive by observing, by thinking, and by acting deliberately. That is how humans endure, and that is how we succeed. His hands rested lightly on the edge of a console, movements subtle but precise. Lyra's eyes lingered on them, and again she whispered, almost to herself, I never forgot your hands, human. This time, Eli understood fully. She remembered not just strength or skill, but intent, care, and subtle influence, qualities humans had always relied upon. The humans were escorted to a quieter part of the city, away from the council chambers. Eli walked with Mara, observing the alien architecture with careful attention. Every building, every walkway, every canal revealed patterns of thought, design, and intention. Humans could navigate complexity intuitively, understanding systems not by brute force, but by seeing the relationships within them. Eli realized that humans were already demonstrating influence without the aliens even fully recognizing it. As they moved, Lyra appeared again, walking beside them in silence. She spoke finally, her voice low and deliberate. There is history you do not know, she said. Long ago, humans influenced events in ways that shaped this empire, though the records do not show it. Your kind has always found a way to leave a mark, quietly, subtly, and without recognition. Eli absorbed the words, understanding the implication. Humanity had always survived against odds that seemed insurmountable, and now he realized that some of the Queen's fascination came from long before their meeting. Humans had been underestimated not only for their physicality, but for their intelligence and moral ingenuity. Lyra led them to a small chamber, a place filled with holographic archives and ancient data. Look here, she said, gesturing to a display. Images flickered into view, showing historical conflicts and decisions where humans had played a role, though their contributions had never been recorded in official alien records. Eli recognized some events from human history, though the connection to the alien empire had been hidden. He realized that humans had influenced outcomes quietly, shaping the galaxy without seeking recognition. Mara's eyes widened in realization. We've been affecting things for centuries, she said softly, without anyone knowing. Lyra nodded, her gaze steady. Yes, and now humans have come far enough that your actions are noticed in real time. The galaxy has changed, and your species is part of that change. But you must act with care. Influence is strongest when subtle, when deliberate, and when guided by purpose. Eli considered her words. Humans had always acted this way, quietly, carefully, with intention, but now the stakes were higher. Every observation, every adjustment, every decision could have consequences across worlds. The council reconvened in the late afternoon. This time, humans were asked to advise on a situation involving multiple alien species, a problem that had caused tension for decades. Eli stepped forward, analyzing patterns in the data, noticing points that others overlooked. He spoke calmly, offering solutions that aligned with fairness, efficiency, and long-term stability. His words carried authority without arrogance, clarity without complexity. The aliens listened, some with skepticism, some with curiosity. Lyra observed quietly, her eyes reflecting pride, recognition, and an acknowledgement of humanity's subtle mastery. By evening, the humans had earned more than attention, they had earned respect. Though the council did not fully understand the implications of what had occurred, they could not ignore the results. Systems were stabilized, tensions eased, and outcomes that had seemed impossible became achievable. Eli understood that humans had demonstrated their strength without force, without conflict, without need for dominance. Influence, precision, and careful observation had proven more effective than any weapon could. When the humans returned to their quarters, Eli reflected on the day's events. Humans had moved quietly, deliberately, and with purpose, altering outcomes and demonstrating skill in ways that others could not immediately perceive. Lyra's repeated acknowledgement of his hands, her quiet fascination, and her subtle guidance revealed a deeper truth. Humans had always survived by being aware, adaptable, and intentional. The galaxy would soon recognize that, though not yet fully. Later, Eli stood on a balcony overlooking the alien city, the twin moons casting pale light across the spires. He thought of the centuries of human history, of subtle actions that had influenced outcomes across planets and species. He realized that humans were not simply participants in events, they were catalysts. Even now, quietly, they were shaping the course of the galaxy. Lyra appeared beside him, silent at first, watching the city. Then she spoke, her voice gentle but firm. The Council sees only what they are taught to see, but you humans show them what they cannot understand. Your hands shape more than machines, they shape the future. Eli turned to her, absorbing the gravity of her words. Recognition from the alien queen was more than respect, it was validation of humanity itself. The night deepened, and the humans returned to their quarters. Eli sat by the observation window once more, hands resting lightly on the ledge. He understood that the journey was far from over. Humanity had demonstrated influence, skill, and subtle power, but greater challenges awaited. The Queen's recognition was a door, but it was only the first step. Humans would need to act with care, intelligence, and precision to shape the galaxy without overstepping, without revealing their full capability too soon. As the city settled into quiet hums of activity, Eli felt a renewed sense of purpose. Humans had survived and thrived in countless situations, often overlooked and underestimated. Now, under the watchful eyes of the alien queen and the council, their subtle mastery had been revealed. Yet the greatest revelations had not yet come. The galaxy was full of possibilities, mysteries, and challenges, and humans were ready to navigate them. And somewhere in the quiet, golden eyes watched Eli once more, lingering on his hands, on his movements, and on the subtle care that defined humanity's greatest strength. The whisper returned softly in his memory. "I never forgot your hands, human." It was no longer just a phrase. It was a statement of understanding, a recognition of potential, and a promise that humans could influence the future in ways no one else could. Eli Carter smiled faintly, knowing that humanity had not only survived but had begun to leave its mark. The journey had only begun, but already humans had proven that their greatest strength was not force, not aggression, but attention, precision, and the ability to shape outcomes quietly, deliberately, and with purpose. The galaxy was beginning to notice, and soon, the subtle power of humanity would change everything. The following morning, Eli Carter awoke to a pale green light spilling across the human quarters. The city below hummed with life, but it was quieter than usual, as if the alien citizens sensed the change that had begun to ripple through their halls. Eli rose and stretched, letting his thoughts focus on the tasks ahead. Yesterday had shown the humans' ability to subtly influence alien systems without confrontation. Today, they were asked to do more, to participate in decisions that affected entire sectors of the Empire. Mara Lynn joined him, her expression thoughtful. "They want our input on a dispute between two sectors. It has been ongoing for decades," she said. Eli nodded, understanding immediately. The council's deliberations were usually formal, rigid, and slow. Any human suggestion might be dismissed as naive, yet humans had always thrived where others relied on tradition over flexibility. "Then we act as we always do," he said. "Observe, think, and offer solutions quietly but clearly." The council chamber was alive with alien delegates when the humans arrived. They moved in a dance of gestures, colors, and subtle tones of sound that humans could only partially understand. Eli noted how the delegates positioned themselves, the small changes in their postures, and the way they shifted attention from one problem to another. Humans had a natural advantage in noticing patterns and anticipating outcomes. He studied the situation carefully, observing not only the problem but also the behavior of the aliens. Lyra was already present, her golden eyes following every human step. Her attention was deliberate, lingering on Eli and his team as if she were cataloging their every move. Eli felt the weight of that gaze, but it was not intimidating. It was acknowledgement, recognition, and perhaps a subtle challenge. He adjusted the strap of his uniform and approached the council podium with measured steps. The problem was complex. Two sectors of the city were competing for resources, each claiming priority over water distribution, energy flow, and population allocation. Alien delegates argued in tones that fluctuated between irritation and formality, their words precise but lacking flexibility. The humans listened. Eli observed. Mara whispered small clarifications, and together they began to outline a solution. Humans could not force an outcome, they could only present insight in a way that guided others to the answer. Eli spoke first. His voice was calm, clear, and deliberate. He outlined a plan that considered the needs of both sectors, introducing a subtle sequence of adjustments that neither relied on authority nor demanded obedience. The aliens listened, some with curiosity, some with skepticism. He pointed to the data displays, highlighting patterns the council had overlooked. Timing sequences, flow adjustments, and resource redistribution were suggested in a manner that emphasized balance and fairness rather than dominance. Lyra's gaze never left him. She seemed to study the way he moved, the careful placement of his hands, the confidence in his calm gestures. Humans influence without force, she whispered to herself. Eli felt the quiet power in that statement. Influence was humanity's true strength. They could shape outcomes without confrontation, guiding others with observation, reason, and subtle action. The council could see the result but not fully comprehend the process. Slowly, the council began to nod, their postures relaxing. Delegates whispered among themselves, evaluating the logic presented. Eli did not rush. Humans had always learned patience. He allowed the aliens to arrive at understanding naturally, never forcing recognition, never revealing the full extent of capability. By the time the council reached agreement, both sectors were aligned, resources distributed efficiently, and the potential for future conflict reduced. Afterward, the humans were escorted to a quiet observation gallery above the chamber. Eli and Myra watched as the council members moved through the hallways, discussing outcomes. Lyra joined them, her expression unreadable but her gaze steady. "You have done well," she said softly, "not because you imposed authority, but because you showed what others cannot see. That is your greatest strength." Eli nodded, understanding the significance of her words. Humans survived and thrived not by force, but by careful observation, reasoned action, and subtle guidance. The day continued with more sessions, each presenting complex scenarios where human insight could subtly alter outcomes. Infrastructure planning, trade negotiations, and population management, all were problems that the council had struggled to solve efficiently. Eli guided his team, showing how small adjustments, careful observation, and logical sequencing could produce results that were fair, sustainable, and unnoticed in their subtlety. Each success reinforced the humans' reputation, though few fully understood why the humans succeeded where others had failed. Lyra's attention remained constant. She moved among the humans quietly, offering guidance only when necessary, allowing them to act with autonomy. Her presence was reassuring, not controlling. Eli realized that her fascination went beyond curiosity. She recognized that humans did not merely react to situations. They anticipated, adapted, and shaped events deliberately. The observation was almost reverential, an acknowledgement of skill and thought that went far beyond what most species could comprehend. As the afternoon sun shifted, Eli took a moment to step outside onto a balcony overlooking the alien city. The twin moons were beginning to rise, casting silver and green light across the spires and streets. Mara joined him, her gaze following the flow of citizens below. "Do you think they truly understand?" she asked quietly. Eli smiled faintly. "Some will eventually. Others may never comprehend it fully, but that is irrelevant. What matters is that humans influence outcomes where others cannot, and the ripple of that influence will grow." Lyra appeared beside them without a sound, her presence gentle yet commanding. She looked down at the city and then back at Eli. "You have shown them what humans can do without needing to dominate," she said. "But the greatest challenge is ahead. The Empire's Council will face situations where subtlety alone may not be enough. You must continue to act with intention, foresight, and care." Eli nodded, absorbing the weight of her words. Humans had always faced challenges that required strategy and patience. Now the scale was larger, but the principle remained the same: careful observation, thoughtful action, and quiet influence. The evening brought a demonstration of long-term planning. The council presented projections for resource allocation across multiple sectors and even distant colonies. It was a tangle of data, systems, and assumptions that had confounded the Empire's best minds. Eli studied the information carefully, noting inconsistencies, outdated protocols, and hidden patterns that could be leveraged for efficiency and fairness. Mara and the rest of the human team coordinated, offering insights and adjustments in subtle ways that respected alien methods but introduced improvements they had never considered. Lyra observed silently, her eyes reflecting both approval and wonder. She moved closer to Eli and whispered softly, "You have the ability to change more than a council or a city. You can change how an entire system thinks without them realizing it." Eli considered the statement. Humans had always survived by shaping environments, influencing others, and acting with intention. Now, on a planetary scale, that principle applied not just to survival but to influence, guidance, and leadership. The council concluded its sessions late in the evening. Delegates moved with a sense of satisfaction, though they did not fully comprehend the role humans had played in producing it. Eli and Mara returned to their quarters, reflecting on the day. Humans had achieved influence without confrontation, guidance without imposition, and recognition without boasting. It was a demonstration of the subtle power that had defined humanity for centuries. Eli sat by the observation window once more, watching the city glow under the twin moons. He thought of Lyra, her golden eyes, and her repeated acknowledgement of his hands. There was something profound in her recognition, a validation of the quiet, deliberate, and intelligent ways humans influenced events. Humans had always survived where others relied on force, aggression, or dominance. Now they were being recognized as a subtle yet powerful presence in a galaxy that had underestimated them for too long. As the night deepened, Eli felt a sense of purpose settle over him. Humans had demonstrated skill, intelligence, and influence on a scale that few could understand. Lyra's fascination was more than curiosity. It was acknowledgement of capability, respect for deliberate thought, and recognition of a species that acted with foresight, patience, and subtlety. Humanity's influence was growing, quietly and deliberately, and the galaxy would soon take notice. He thought of the centuries of human history, of quiet actions that had shaped events and outcomes in ways others had overlooked. The same qualities, adaptability, intelligence, observation, and careful action, were now being applied in real time on a planetary scale. Humans were not merely participants, they were catalysts, shaping outcomes without anyone fully realizing it. Lyra approached again, her voice soft in the quiet night. "The Council has begun to see what they cannot understand fully," she said. "They see results but not the methods. That is your advantage, human, that is your strength." Eli nodded, knowing she was right. Humans thrived not because they dominated others, but because they noticed, adapted, and acted with intelligence and care. The galaxy could not yet predict their moves, but it would eventually respect them. The twin moons rose higher, casting a silver glow across the city. Eli Carter felt the familiar weight of responsibility, not as a burden but as a challenge. Humans had always met challenges with intelligence, patience, and precision. Now the scale was larger, the stakes higher, and the consequences far-reaching. Yet the principle remained the same: act deliberately, observe carefully, and influence subtly. That was humanity's greatest strength. And as Lyra's gaze lingered on him once more, her eyes reflecting the soft moonlight, Eli understood that recognition had been granted, not for strength, speed, or weaponry, but for the quiet, deliberate, and intelligent way humans shaped outcomes. The whisper of her words echoed in his mind. "I never forgot your hands, human." It was a statement, a promise, and a challenge. Humans had begun to shape the galaxy quietly, subtly, and with intention, and the effects would ripple far beyond what anyone could see tonight. Eli smiled faintly, watching the city below. Humanity had survived countless challenges in its history, often unnoticed, underestimated, and dismissed. Now, on this distant planet, their methods and influence were being recognized in subtle but profound ways. The journey had only begun, but the path ahead was clear. Observation, precision, careful action, and quiet influence would guide humanity toward a future where their ingenuity and subtle power would be undeniable. The next morning, the city was alive with a quiet hum of anticipation. Eli Carter stood at the balcony of the human quarters, watching the alien metropolis below, its towers shimmering silver and green in the soft light. Humans had subtly influenced systems, solved complex problems, and earned quiet recognition from the alien queen, Lyra. Yet today was the day where their work would move from subtle influence to tangible change, shaping decisions that affected not only this planet but the entire empire. Mara Lynn joined him, carrying a datapad filled with council requests and projected scenarios. "Captain, they want human input on interstellar alliances and trade agreements," she said. "They believe we may offer a perspective they have never considered." Eli nodded. Humans had always survived by seeing what others missed, by noticing patterns, and by acting with foresight. This was the moment to demonstrate that ability on a galactic scale. "Then we guide them," he said, but quietly, deliberately, and with care. They walked to the council chamber, the hall larger than ever before, filled with holographic displays, alien delegates, and advisors from distant sectors. The room buzzed with alien communication, light signals, tonal shifts, and subtle movements that humans had learned to observe with care. Eli noted the patterns, the pauses, the subtle shifts in stance, and the micro-expressions of the delegates. Humanity's greatest strength had always been awareness, adaptability, and intelligence, and now it was time to apply it on the grandest scale. Lyra stood at the far end of the chamber, her golden eyes focused on Eli as he entered. She gave no greeting, no gesture of formality. Her attention alone was acknowledgement. Eli understood that her gaze carried a weight far beyond simple observation. She had watched him, studied him, and now she was ready to allow the humans to step into a role that the council had never expected. He felt a sense of purpose, calm and deliberate, knowing that the moment required not force, but intelligence, careful thought, and influence. The council began with presentations from the various sectors, detailing trade disputes, resource allocations, and potential alliances with distant civilizations. Each problem was complex, layered with assumptions, history, and competing interests. Alien delegates argued their positions with precision and tradition, but their perspectives were narrow, constrained by habit and hierarchy. Eli listened, observing, noting inconsistencies, overlooked connections and patterns that could be leveraged for efficient solutions. When it was time for human input, Eli stepped forward, his movements calm, deliberate, and precise. He did not command, he did not argue, he merely guided. Using logic, observation, and careful reasoning, he highlighted opportunities for collaboration, compromises that balanced needs across sectors, and subtle adjustments to alliances that could prevent future conflicts. His words were simple, clear, and persuasive, framed in ways that respected alien traditions but introduced ideas that they had never fully considered. The council members listened in silence at first, some skeptical, others curious. Gradually, murmurs of agreement passed through the chamber as delegates began to realize that the humans had solved problems that had confounded them for decades. Eli did not rush the process. Patience had always been humanity's strength, allowing others to arrive at understanding without feeling coerced. Every point he made was deliberate, each suggestion thoughtful, guiding the council to see connections they had overlooked. Lyra's gaze never left him. She observed how Eli used his hands, how he gestured subtly to emphasize ideas, how his calm presence drew attention without demanding it. She whispered softly to herself, "I never forgot your hands, human." The phrase had taken on new meaning now. It was not merely recognition of skill, but acknowledgement of humanity's subtle influence and foresight. She understood, as Eli did not fully yet, that humans could shape the galaxy without ever needing to wield force. By the afternoon, decisions were being made that had seemed impossible at dawn. Trade agreements were finalized, resources allocated efficiently, and alliances strengthened in ways that ensured long-term stability. The council members were astonished. They did not fully comprehend how these outcomes had been achieved, but they could not deny the results. The humans had subtly guided them to solutions that were fair, sustainable, and effective. It was influence in its purest form, quiet, deliberate, and undeniable. After the council sessions, Eli and his team were invited to a ceremonial garden, a tranquil space filled with alien flora that shimmered with soft light. Lyra approached, her golden eyes reflecting the glow of the bioluminescent plants. She extended her hand, delicate and deliberate. Eli took it, understanding the gesture's weight. "You have proven what humans can do," she said softly. "Not through force, not through weapons, but through intelligence, foresight, and subtle action. That is a power few understand and even fewer respect. I never forgot your hands, human." Eli felt a quiet warmth at her words. Recognition from Lyra was more than respect, it was validation. Humans had survived countless threats, not by domination, but by observation, careful action, and quiet influence. Now, that same principle was recognized at a galactic scale. He understood that humanity's strength lay not in power alone, but in the ability to see what others missed, to act deliberately, and to shape outcomes without coercion. Mara smiled beside him. "It's remarkable," she said softly. "They follow our guidance without realizing it fully," Eli nodded. "That is humanity's advantage. We influence, adapt, and endure. We guide outcomes subtly, leaving traces that others may not recognize until much later." He glanced at Lyra, who had stepped slightly back, allowing him to speak freely. Her presence alone had created an environment where humans could excel. The evening brought a quieter moment. Eli stood on a balcony overlooking the city, watching the twin moons rise over the spires. The humans had influenced the council, stabilized trade, and resolved disputes, all without confrontation. Lyra joined him silently, her gaze on the horizon. "The galaxy is beginning to see humans differently," she said. "Not as weak, not as fragile, but as thoughtful, capable, and deliberate. You have changed perceptions without forcing them to change." Eli smiled, understanding the significance. Influence without confrontation had always been humanity's greatest skill, and now it was being recognized on a scale they had never before encountered. The humans were celebrated quietly, not with pomp or ceremony, but with acknowledgement from the council and the alien queen herself. Delegates who had been skeptical now approached them with questions, seeking insight, guidance, and collaboration. Eli answered calmly, thoughtfully, and deliberately, never dominating, never commanding, but always guiding. Each interaction reinforced the subtle power humans possessed, a power that grew not from physicality, but from intelligence, foresight, and intention. As the night deepened, Eli returned to the observation deck. He reflected on the journey humans had taken, from being underestimated, observed, and dismissed, to being recognized for their subtle influence, intelligence, and foresight. Lyra's whisper echoed again in his mind. "I never forgot your hands, human." The words were no longer just recognition. They were acknowledgement of humanity's true strength, a validation of their history, their adaptability, and their quiet mastery of influence. He thought of Earth, of the centuries of survival, exploration, and subtle action that had defined humanity. Humans had endured famine, disease, conflict, and isolation, yet they had always adapted, learned, and influenced outcomes in ways others could not. That same principle now applied on a galactic scale. Observation, precision, intelligence, and subtle action had allowed humans to navigate a foreign empire, guide complex decisions, and influence outcomes without confrontation. Lyra appeared once more, standing beside him as they gazed over the city. "Humans have always been underestimated," she said softly, "but you have shown what can be achieved with thought, care, and subtle action. You leave marks that are not immediately visible, yet their impact is undeniable. The galaxy will remember this." Eli nodded, feeling a quiet pride. Humanity had always been clever, adaptable, and resilient. Now that resilience had expanded to influence, guidance, and subtle leadership on a planetary and interstellar scale. The twin moons rose higher, casting silver and green light over the city. Eli Carter stood with Mara and the rest of the team, feeling the quiet weight of accomplishment. Humans had not fought for recognition. They had not demanded acknowledgement. They had demonstrated strength through intelligence, foresight, and deliberate action. And the alien queen, Lyra, had recognized it, validating humanity's subtle yet undeniable power. By the time the humans returned to their quarters, the city was calm, yet alive with quiet energy. Citizens moved with a sense of curiosity, council delegates discussed new possibilities, and distant sectors began to respond to the changes humans had guided. Eli sat by the observation window, resting his hands lightly on the ledge. He thought of the journey that had brought humanity here, subtle, deliberate, and intelligent. Influence, foresight, and precision had proven stronger than force. Humans had survived by these principles for centuries, and now the galaxy would witness them in action. Lyra appeared once more, stepping silently beside him. She looked out at the city, her golden eyes reflecting the twin moons. "You have changed perceptions today," she said. "The galaxy now sees that humans are more than they appear. Thought, care, and subtle action are your greatest strength. I never forgot your hands, human, and now no one will overlook them again." Eli felt the quiet power in her words. Humans had not needed to dominate, to fight, or to boast. Their skill, patience, and intelligence had done more than any weapon could. As the night settled, Eli reflected on what humanity had achieved. Recognition, influence, and respect had been earned not through force, but through subtle action, careful thought, and deliberate skill. Lyra's whisper, repeated and understood, symbolized the acknowledgement of humanity's true power. The ability to act wisely, shape outcomes, and endure with intelligence and precision. And as the city below shimmered under the twin moons, Eli Carter smiled. Humanity had not only survived, it had thrived, influenced, and changed perceptions across an entire empire. Quietly, deliberately, and with subtle intelligence, humans had proven what they had always known. That true strength lay not in aggression, but in observation, thought, care, and the skill to guide outcomes with precision. The galaxy would remember humanity, and it would do so with respect, awe, and acknowledgement that could never be ignored.